Welcome down the warp pipe. I've been tracking the games that I've been playing and beating using ggapp.io. I put a link to the website down below in the pinned comment as well as my profile. This is so I can keep my New Year's resolution of beating more of my backlog in focus for myself throughout the entire year. Looking back at the beginning of January to the end of March, I beat a total of 8 games, so let me give you my thoughts on each one, as well as at the end, I'll crown champion of the quarter. I originally wanted to do individual reviews for each of these games, but after doing my review for Super Mario 3D World, I just realized that if I did that, the entire channel would turn into a review channel. So going forward, I'll maybe pick and choose a few of them to do individual reviews for, but I'm not going to do one for each. With that out of the way, let's talk about the first game I beat this year with my wife, Super Mario 3D World. It's an awesome Mario game, and it's a perfect mix of the 2D Mario games and the 3D Mario games. As far as I'm concerned, it's easily worth your time and money if you haven't played it before, and if you have, the quality of life improvements here make it great to revisit. We didn't get around to the Bowser's Fury DLC, and that's something that I'll cover separately later on when I actually get around to beating it. I personally hope Nintendo makes this a third type of Mario game and creates a sequel for it. I also hope that they make the new Super Mario Bros. Games a thing of the past and return 2D Mario games back to what they were during the heyday of Mario 3 and Super Mario World. The first game I beat for myself this year was Ghostrunner, a cyborg ninja action game with a ton of parkour! It even has hints of a rhythm game with its boss fights, and it actually was a great time, coming in just under 10 hours for me. Although your mileage may vary if you aren't quite good at the platforming and parkouring here. Generous checkpoints go a long way to making the game not quite as painful to play through as you might think, and if you have a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, or even just an SSD on your PC, the load times are basically non-existent. The one downside though is that if you want to actually quit out of the game, you gotta make sure you're at the end of a level rather than just at a checkpoint within it, because it'll reset your progress all the way to the beginning of the level, and that actually kinda sucked. I played it on PS5, and that means that I wish I played it on Xbox Series X, where Quick Resume can have up to 4 games available. With a hardcore mode introducing late game enemies at the very beginning, and even a challenge map available, there's a ton of replay value and extra content in this game to go back to. I'd say if you're a fan of Mirror's Edge, Titanfall, or Super Meat Boy, this one's totally worth your time. If you're a member of PlayStation Plus and religiously claim the games every single month like I do, then this is already sitting in your library of games to play, and you can go check it out and decide for yourself if it's worth your time. Speaking of PlayStation Plus, the next game I got through it, which is Dirt 5. This one started a bit of a run for me with getting platinum trophies. Although I didn't originally plan to do this with Dirt 5, once it got its teeth in me, it wouldn't let go. And whether it was playing online with friends or just going through the single player, it was a blast. I'm not normally one for sim racers, and about as far as I go is something like Forza Horizon 5, but as an arcade racing fan, if you haven't checked out Dirt 5, I highly recommend give it a shot. Especially if you claim your PlayStation Plus rewards like I do, then this is already sitting in your library. But if not, it's easily worth the money. Just keep an eye out for those weird and wonky physics. Also, if you're looking to master the online races, the key is to get ahead or stay behind the pack at the very first turn, because there's a mess of cars that tend to get piled into that first corner. Moving on from Dirt 5, I got into a game that I planned on platinuming, and that's Sifu. This was my most anticipated game for the first half of 2022. I know Kirby's a pretty close second, but yeah, it was Sifu. This game got a lot of notoriety for its hard difficulty back when it first came out, but since the physical release has come out, it's actually gotten an update to include both an easier and a harder difficulty, with a unique combat system that was an evolution of what Slow Clap had originally done in Absolver. This is a lot easier to recommend for people than that game was. However, I will mention that I think you should play it on the normal difficulty rather than on easy, unless you just kind of want to plow through the game, as understanding the combat system is something that's really satisfying. If you're a fan of beat-em-ups, martial arts action movies, or the Arkham series of games, this is an easy recommendation. It's worth mentioning I platinumed the game after 34 hours before the patch came out, just as bragging rights, I guess. The next game I beat was a surprise to both my wife and myself, as we both didn't know it exists, and that's Joe and Mac Returns. It's a single-screen arcade platformer from back in the 90s that is actually the sequel game to the original Joe and Mac on Super Nintendo. So technically what I thought was the second game, Joe and Mac Lost in the Tropics, is actually the third. Who knew there was a trilogy? It's supposed to be on PlayStation 4, but for me, I played it on the Switch because that was the only platform I could find it on. So I don't know if it's been delisted at some point, but it's still available there. You can have fun with it if you care about the high score, or if you just want to play through the game in a Saturday afternoon like we did. But I will preface that it has some risque comedy to it that may not be appropriate for all children depending on your parenting style. To me, it's not a big deal, but everyone might have different mileage with that depending on your stances. I wonder what cave person sushi tastes like. Okay, no, actually I take that back. Let's just focus on what dino sushi would taste like. Who knows? Maybe it's good. Give me a sec here. Ah! Yes! The next game I played was Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's a game I should have been on from day one. I mean, it had great reviews at the time, and I just kind of waited till it was on Game Pass because I wasn't quite sure, seeing as I never played a Yakuza game before. Although I did see them played by my buddy Jace. And all I gotta say is, it was the perfect mix of things to get me into the whole Yakuza universe. Even though it has dragon in the title, giving a nod to the fact that protagonist Ichiban Kasuga is a huge fan of Dragon Quest, I actually argue that this is much more in line, combat system-wise at least, with Mario RPG. So, I would call it Yakuza Like a Mario. Okay, that might not quite work, but I'm sticking with it. I also fell for the way that Yakuza games tell their story. One part super serious crime noir, and another part incredibly slapstick comedy. It was enough to get me to go and buy all the previous Yakuza games on PS4, even knowing that the combat system is more in line with a beat-em-up. I do love myself some beat-em-ups though, but I'm gonna save those for 2023 as I'm claiming it the year of Yakuza! Just do yourself a favor and go play this game. I'm still wrestling in my head whether I prefer it over Chrono Trigger. I just can't decide. That being said, I do need to replay Chrono Trigger, and I'm going to get to that at some point in the near future. Back to the Platinum run, and a bit of a surprise, because this is a Platinum trophy I didn't expect to get, ever. I mean, I was hoping to, and I wanted to work towards it, but I thought I was gonna have to jump through some crazy hoops here. And I actually didn't. If you didn't guess already, it's for Fall Guys. This was a fun Saturday activity where me and my buddy Jace sat down to play through the Sweet Thieves special event that was going on, and that event made it significantly easier as you only needed to win one round. I'm just glad this one's out of the way and I can play Fall Guys for some quick, almost arcadey style fun now. If you haven't played Fall Guys yet, it's on PC and PlayStation, actually only PS4, which is super weird, but it eventually will come to Xbox and Switch. So just hold out for a little while and you'll also get to jump into the fun. The crowning achievement of my Platinum run, starting off with Dirt 5, moving on to Sifu, the surprise of Fall Guys, and then, the letdown of Elden Ring, because I totally screwed up some cloud save stuff and just didn't have the time to do it. Decided that, hey, you know what, if I gotta play through the game again, I'm gonna do it towards the end of the year and do it as a little treat to myself. Because this game has legs, like in the same way that Breath of the Wild has legs. I think I still prefer Dark Souls 3 as a Souls game because it's a smaller, tighter package, but the experience of exploring and going around Elden Ring's insane lands between is just something that is only matched. Actually, it's not even matched by Breath of the Wild. It's completely on its own level. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is more accessible and probably a lot more fun, but if you're into Souls games like I am, then this just hits a certain specific sweet spot that borders on obsession. Okay, yeah, it doesn't border. I was obsessed with this. It took me 136 hours to play through the game, and I'm willing to go back to get the Platinum. That's mental to me. At the end of the day, if you haven't played it yet, it's absolutely worth every single dollar you can spend on it. And going from there, if you haven't played a Souls game before, this is where you want to jump in. You can go back to the back catalog later, just keeping in mind the fact that you basically played the peak of the mountain. I do have some criticisms to be aware of if you haven't played this game yet, and that's the fact that the difficulty for some of the optional content can border on cheap, as well as the fact that the reusing of some of the assets seems unwarranted considering if they didn't do it, the game still would have been 100 hours for me. This is a game that's getting dissected for the next 5 years in the exact same way that Breath of the Wild was over the last 5 years. I'm actually kind of worried Breath of the Wild 2 might not be able to live up to the natural next stepping point of this. But man, imagine if it does! So what did you play from the beginning of January to the end of March 2022? Comment down below and let me know. What game do you think is my game of the quarter? I'll give you a few seconds here and list out the games that I played through. Super Mario 3D World, Ghostrunner, Dirt 5, Sifu, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Fall Guys, or Elden Ring. It's Sifu, although I'll give an honorable nod to both Elden Ring and Yakuza Like a Dragon. There's a reason I own a physical copy of the game I bought digitally. Sifu easily redefined melee combat as far as I'm concerned in the same way that the Arkham games did back when those originally came out. Thank you so much for joining me down the warp pipe.